Am I the only one that didn't know thousands of soldiers survived the Eastern Front's brutal winters thanks to a forgotten thermal trick? Winter on the Eastern Front during World War II was a merciless adversary. Temperatures routinely plummeted below -40 degrees, and soldiers often found themselves trapped in trenches, foxholes, and poorly insulated bunkers with nothing but thin uniforms and their wits to keep them alive. In these conditions, conventional firewood and stoves were not always available, and entire battalions suffered from frostbite and hypothermia. But amid this extreme hardship, a forgotten survival technique emerged, one that could triple the heat inside a small shelter without requiring additional fuel. This is the story of the hidden thermal trick that history almost forgot, and today I'll show you exactly how it worked and why it's still relevant for survival enthusiasts. Before we dive into the details, if you enjoy uncovering history's survival secrets and want more content like this, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with fellow history buffs, leave a comment with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to Warcraft Survival for more rare survival techniques that history left behind. Now, let's get into how this ingenious method actually worked. At its core, the technique relied on the principle of thermal mass and heat reflection, something that engineers and soldiers exploited without the luxury of modern heaters or insulation materials. The method involved creating a compact insulated heat chamber using simple materials like bricks, clay, or even tightly packed hay, which had a surprising ability to retain and radiate heat for hours. Soldiers would position a small fire or stove within this chamber, and the thermal mass would absorb the heat, slowly releasing it back into the space. Unlike a bare campfire that loses heat quickly to the environment, this method allowed the shelter to maintain a consistent, survivable temperature, even when outside conditions were near lethal. One of the most fascinating aspects of this survival trick was its adaptability. Eastern Front soldiers, often improvising with whatever materials were on hand, learned to combine reflective surfaces, such as metal sheets or even layers of oilcloth with dense insulation. The reflective layer would bounce heat back toward the occupants, while the insulating materials slowed its escape. The result was a small area that could feel significantly warmer than the surrounding environment, sometimes by as much as 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, a literal difference between life and death. This technique wasn't just theoretical, it was applied in the field under extreme conditions. Historical accounts describe soldiers carving trenches or small bunkers into frozen earth, lining them with layers of insulating material scavenged from abandoned buildings or vehicles, and creating a concentrated heat source within. Some accounts even describe the use of clay pots stacked strategically around a small candle or oil lamp. The clay would absorb the heat from the flame and radiate it slowly, allowing a single small candle to warm a small space for hours. These are the kinds of methods that modern survivalists and historical reenactors are now rediscovering, offering lessons not only in ingenuity, but in respecting how much knowledge can be drawn from necessity. Understanding the science behind the method is just as important as knowing how to replicate it. The key is to slow the movement of heat while concentrating it in a defined space. Dense materials such as clay, bricks or packed hay have high thermal mass, meaning they absorb heat energy and release it slowly. Reflective surfaces prevent the heat from dissipating outward. By combining the two, soldiers created a small microclimate within a larger freezing environment. Today, you can experiment with similar techniques when camping in extreme cold or designing efficient heating systems in off-grid shelters. Even small tweaks, like adding a reflective layer behind your stove or insulating the floor and walls with natural materials, can make an enormous difference. Another lesson this technique teaches is about resourcefulness under pressure. Soldiers could not rely on abundant firewood or modern stoves. They had to make every flame count. By observing which materials retained heat longest and how placement affected warmth distribution, they developed a system that maximized the utility of minimal resources. For modern survival enthusiasts, the takeaway is clear. Even in extreme environments, careful attention to materials, placement, and heat retention can dramatically improve your chances of staying safe. The forgotten thermal trick of the Eastern Front is more than a historical curiosity. It is a blueprint for survival. It reminds us that knowledge, ingenuity, and understanding natural principles can compensate for a lack of modern tools. By studying these methods, anyone, from a history lover to an off-grid survivalist, can gain practical insights into keeping warm, conserving fuel, and improving resilience in cold conditions. It's a lesson in adaptability, a principle that has saved lives in the harshest winters and remains relevant even in today's unpredictable environments. If you found this guide helpful, I encourage you to share it with fellow enthusiasts and incorporate these lessons into your own survival toolkit. Understanding how past generations survived extreme winters not only deepens our appreciation of history, but also equips us with timeless techniques for resilience. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Warcraft Survival for more practical survival wisdom and historical secrets that history tried to bury. These are the skills and stories that can make all the difference when the temperature drops and survival depends on ingenuity and knowledge. Stay updated. New videos drop every week, so hit the bell and never miss out.